All right. So I'm Laura Peck. I'm an advertising and public relations major. And my roles in the CMP have been designer. I designed the PowerPoint and I also edited the CMP document.
My name is Dustin Dwight. I'm a senior general studies major, and my main role in this is presenter and some other little things, but mainly just presenter.
Hi everyone, I'm Jade Kirkpatrick. I'm a junior studying political science. My main role was I was the head researcher for our crisis management plan for Amazon. So today we're going to be presenting our CMP for one of the largest online retail businesses, if not the largest across the nation and the world. We figured that with a CMP from Amazon, that would have the largest effect, especially in the day and age that we are in. So without further ado, let's get to the presentation.
So as we look at any type of CMP plan, obviously who we contact first and foremost would be the board members. Jeff Bezos being the CEO, JC Anderson, who is head of communications and PR, David Zapolosky, who is the legal counsel for Amazon, Brian Olzowski, who is head of HR and the CFO, and then Andrew Jacy, who is basically one of the safety advisors. We feel like those are probably the most important people that need to get involved immediately whenever a crisis happens for Amazon. Next page. All right, so the possible crisis that we chose within Amazon and that whole business was fire, harassment, termination of the CEO, shortage of supplies, COVID outbreak, and then fentanyl exposure to the employees. I'll get a little bit more in depth as we go through the document as we go. So as far as our crisis risk assessment, our SWOT analysis, right? Our strengths, our weaknesses, and our opportunities and threats. So a couple of our strengths, we are one of the largest online retailers, which we offer programs that benefit the surrounding communities. And we're very efficient in our customer response, whether it's a crisis or anything that has to do with the business. Some of the weaknesses are shipping cost, possibility of online fraud that we know that happens on a daily basis, and truck issues causing late packages and customers that are unhappy with that. Next item would be opportunities. We develop partnerships with different types of companies and really people around the world. We sell a high variety of products, just to touch on a couple. And then some of our threats would be competition from other retail stores online and offline, and the possibility of stolen or lost packages. We see that happen a lot with porch poachers during the holiday season. Next screen. Also, proprietary information approval from the CEO must be given before anyone from the company can share information with the stakeholders, media outlet, employees, anybody really involved in the crisis. So considering stakeholders, right? So obviously employees, number one, instruct employees with information on how they complete tasks within a crisis in mind. That has to go with training and being prepared for a crisis that could happen. Shareholders, notify shareholders right away, like we spoke about on the contacts. Keep trust with our shareholders because we all have to have the same messaging during and after a crisis. Consumers is the third one. Provide questions and answers. Make sure fact pages and websites about the crisis are accurate and not given to lead in any direction. Make sure we have the utmost integrity when we do that. And then the news outlets, another huge outlet for us as far as reaching out to the media to give employees, customers, and other businesses kind of information in regards to the crisis and limit any other outside biasness to affect what's happening within our system. So planning for resumption. We'll get into that as we go through the crises on the main page. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was muted, but
Go ahead. Go ahead, you're right.
We're gonna go ahead and show you our document, our CMP document, to show you a little bit more about how we created it.
Yep.
So.
That's all right.
Yeah, I'm trying to like show more of it, but it won't let me. Make it a little smaller.
Yeah, just you can scroll down. That's great.
Okay, is that big enough?
A little bit bigger.
Okay.
There we go. So obviously this is our CMP program. In case of a crisis, if you'll scroll down to our table of contents, just to kind of go over what this document has in it. So first and foremost, some of our PowerPoint went through some of these, but obviously the introduction, we're going to go over the acknowledgement form for the employees that they will sign and tear off, rehearsal dates, potential crises that we went through, the 6 that we talked about, the SWOT analysis that we went over, some of the proprietary information, and then stakeholders, worksheets, and continued as far as CMP contact sheets, and then levels of the crisis, harassment, talking about a few other things as far as sexual harassment, hotlines, COVID outbreak, termination, fentanyl, post-crisis, and then references. So just some of the things that we're going to talk about within our plan. So this is our introduction, basically just talking to all our employees and executives. This crisis management plan protects not only us, but the people that work for Amazon, which that is the most important thing when a crisis comes about. Our business is worldwide and vast. So we've supplied many of jobs, many products and customers, and much, much more. This is a tool our company can use to succeed, to better serve those around us. This is why it's necessary to have a plan in place in case of an emergency. So to protect our safety and safety around us and our livelihoods, this is why we put together this plan and the procedures that are in place. The planning ahead is only to be effective as it is read, studied by each of you. So this reflects our own pursuit to protect those around us. Thank you for your time. And that is straight from Jeff Bezos, the CEO. So acknowledgement, I talked about the acknowledgement form. This just kind of goes over kind of our mission and in a crisis or during a crisis to make sure that all employees are trained and understand how to handle it. And this is the acknowledgement form from Jeff and from some of the other chair members that you will sign and tear off. These are the rehearsal dates for training. Basically, pick one, pick two, pick all of them. These are the dates that we go through. We'd like to have most employees be there for all of these to make sure we rehearse any types of crisis and go through the process that we have. So potential crisis, we talked about this on the PowerPoint. So basically when we talked about the 6, the firing of a board member, firing of a CEO, shortage of supplies, COVID outbreaks, and then fentanyl exposure. That's kind of a broad spectrum of crisis, but those absolutely could happen with a company like Amazon. So SWOT analysis, touched on this. Obviously, our strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats, those go in line with what our PowerPoint. So basically touched on that. So I don't think we need to go into any more detail on that. And then proprietary information, we touched on that on the PowerPoint. So let's talk about our stakeholder strategy worksheet, right? This is the most important part that we spoke about. Employees, shareholders, consumers, if you scroll down just a little bit more, the news media, right? This is the most important part of this plan. Why? Because it's the people that we communicate with, it's the people that care and invest in our company. It goes out to our customers that support and make our company what it is. And then the news media, which is basically how we disseminate and give communication and information about our company and any possible crises that happen. All right. So CMP contact sheet, just a little quick brief synopsis of what we've talked about on the PowerPoint and who we're going to contact. But in the event of a crisis, this team of individuals are the ones that need to be contacted. Jeff Bezos being number 1. Number 2, David Zablosky, because he's the legal counsel and then the rest of the board members that we went over in the PowerPoint. Those two are the most important. So key contacts, obviously Jeff Bezos, JC Anderson on the communication side, our legal counsel, head of HR, which will deal with the employees and how to handle any type of crisis. And then Andrew JC, who is obviously a communicator on the web and that can basically disseminate any information that we need to make sure it's accurate with the statements that Jeff, JC, and David put out to our customers. All right, so related business contact sheets. These are just some of our, offline type of contacts that we use internal and external, right? And those are the Amazon press release, Amazon.com PR, Amazon Web Services PR, and those are all for different countries too. So we want to make sure that all of our Amazon outlets are giving accurate and precise information on crisis and keeping people alerted and up to speed on what's going on. The second thing, obviously we use FedEx and UPS for our shipping. They need to be notified, their employees need to be notified, and their board members to make sure we are keeping that team mentality when we're looking at defeating a crisis that happens with Amazon. So levels of crisis, right? So we went over the 6 types of crisis. So level 1 crisis, right? Most likely to occur, but with smaller impact, right? Resolve immediately and notified management on the CMP. That's why we built the CMP. It's for these types of situations. Number 2, we need to make sure notified PR and any products that are on, that are on back order or whatever it may be. So we have fire, which could happen, right? In the manufacturing plant, could happen within our warehouses, on a delivery truck because of an accident, whatever it may be, or shortage of supplies and products. So that would say, we would say that's level 1 crisis. A level 2, which would not occur as much as a level 1, but could, right? But needs to be addressed carefully. So this is obviously, we need to notify management, the regional office, HR, and any safety management team that is included in this. And these 2 that we have here are harassment at an individual location, and then COVID outbreaks amongst employees within a site or truck or contact with a customer. Level 3 crisis, right? Not likely to happen, the hope to never happen, right? So termination of the CEO or board member, and then fentanyl exposure in the warehouse or to the delivery drivers. Why is that important? Because that's going to affect the company as a whole, right? And it will drop down and hit every different person that's involved with Amazon. All right, so just to kind of give you a pre-fire prevention. So let's take fire, right, for an example. So these are some of the precautions that you would take before something of a crisis would happen with fire. Please review your local exits and fire escapes. Pretty normal. It's in your orientation packet. Keep login information at separate locations and keep important documentation on a cloud to make sure you don't lose it during this crisis. Turn off all electric equipment and unplug each night. Call maintenance to replace any flickering lights or any issues with electricity. Every 3 months, look over your packaging machinery to make sure it's up to code, check batteries, and then host a fire drill. This all comes down to training and being aware of these situations to make sure that when it happens, you're prepared and your team is prepared. And safety is the number 1 thing. So during, let's say the crisis happened, right? The fire. What do we need to do to contain it, right? We need to calmly exit the room. First person out, hold open the door for the exit. Last person out, close the door to the room. Gather in the parking lot to make sure everybody gets out safe. Management team, make sure every employee is counted for and account for anybody missing and notify, obviously, EMTs and the fire department. And also allow the employees to return home for the day to mentally recover from the crisis. So one of the resumption following this crisis, we will first make sure all stakeholders know within the company what has happened, right? Amazon has insurance, so we need to obviously alert insurance to the building and start working on a plan for recovery. Make sure to take all the precautionary steps to ensure the fire not to happen again, right? So obviously that's what we want to do, right? But we know that can happen again. But we want to make sure and take precautions and learn from what we did the first time and better our policies. Make sure all our employees who are out of the job rebuilding are paid during that time. Let's say one of our big factories or one of our warehouses go down. Make sure those employees have somewhere to go to work or paid on leave. Next crisis we have is going to be on shortage of supplies, right? So this can happen for Amazon and they don't have control of it, right? Because they sell so many different brands and different products, right? So you need to notify all delivery supervisors and managers of supplies that are depleted, right? And that lays on the manufacturers too, and the ones that are delivering to Amazon. Continue to monitor lower levels of supplies on the shelves and communicate manufacturers on potential shortages. Meet with warehouse and online supervisors to show limitations on certain products. So it's key to know what's going on before it gets to Amazon and what's going on as we give it to our customers. So during a shortage, these are some of the key things. Notify customers of what actions are being taken to fulfill their orders. Communicate with online to make sure order entry has the expectations for our customers to get their product. Limit customers on purchasing products that are on shortage, and then work on a discount program for those that are waiting for a product on back order. So one of the resumption plans on this would be make sure that all stakeholders understand what's going on, because this can affect the bottom line and finance. Make sure Amazon communicates with reason in regards to the shortage and to our customers online and offline, and make sure that our messaging reflects the current situation and keep people updated on a daily basis. And also the last thing, what are we doing to make sure this doesn't happen again? All right. So the third one would be harassment. Obviously, this is a level 2, right? So once harassment's reported, obviously meet with the accused and the possible victim. Obviously, you need to call law enforcement eventually. Let the accused know that there will be an investigation with officers, cameras, interviewing multiple employees. Meet with the victim, make sure they're mentally in line, and if not, they need to go to the hospital, right? And make sure they are right after becoming a victim of harassment. Interview anybody that's around, and obviously review camera footage and make sure everything is reported accurately. So if the harassment, right, there's always two sides to each thing, right? One's false, or is it true, right? So if harassment is false, meet again with the accused and explain the investigation is closed and that it will all continue as normal. Meet with the victim and explain the investigation is closed and all will continue as normal. Host a conference with employees about harassment and how to report it. Very important here, right, is to make sure employees feel safe where they work and in the environment that they spend a ton of time in on a daily basis. If the harassment accusations are true, obviously termination is going to happen for the assailant, right? And this is where legal counsel needs to get involved, recommend legal actions, and then obviously make sure the victim gets the therapy and the help they needed to recover after the harassment. And then obviously training. One of the biggest things for a company is following up on what has happened and make sure every employee feels comfortable with what they're doing. All right. All right, the next one, and I'll briefly touch on these, is the COVID outbreak, right? Obviously, these times are really big for COVID-19 because of the last year. Pre-COVID screening, right? Precautions, all staff needs to be tested, daily cleaning for PPE and safety with staff, weekly updated reports, and make sure all staff is alerted to anybody that has been exposed to COVID-19. Let's say it happens, right? The worst happens. It's COVID. This is a level 2 outbreak within one of the warehouses or another office. All sites that are exposed need to be shut down and properly cleaned, need to communicate with upper management and make sure anybody exposed, employees that are affected are sent home and sent to make sure they are safe and keeping our employees on site safe too. So all employees exposed must get tested for the virus and show proof before coming back to work. So resumption for this, we will make sure all stakeholders know the status of the exposure and who's affected. Amazon will make sure and communicate to all employees of the exposure to make sure to keep them safe. And then on-site vaccines will be available to make sure everybody is vaccinated and the outbreak is controlled. Lastly, all employees exposed that are sent home will be compensated in line with their own plans. All right. And then termination of a CEO is another level, is a level 3. And then we'll go ahead and go to the next one. And then the last one we had was fentanyl exposure crisis plan. So obviously this is a level 3, most likely won't happen, but is the worst case scenario. Okay, go ahead, Laura.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have. We appreciate your time, and we hope you learned a little bit more about how we would manage a crisis. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.